Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with us on matters related to Mauna Kea, which we know are very important to everyone. All right, I'll turn it over to Stephanie, who will give us her director's report.
First up is administrative rules, an update on where we are, where the university is in having these rules approved. Following the September 2018 public hearings, the university reviewed and received comments, and as well as the hearing officer's report, and made some changes to the rules, which then made the university deciding to hold another round of public hearings. And so a second round of public hearings were held in Honolulu, Hilo, Waikoloa, and Kahului on June 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th, respectively. The hearing officer's reports from those hearings are being compiled along with all the public comments that were received and will be reviewed by UH. If there are no substantial changes to be made to those rules, the Board of Regents will be holding a meeting on August 30th to review and to consider approval of the rules. Regarding the 30-meter telescope, on June 20th, the governor announced that the Department of Land and Natural Resources issued to the university a notice to proceed with construction of the 30-meter telescope. The issuance of this notice was based on DLNR's review of documents related to the project's pre-construction, permit conditions, and compliance on the part of the university. On July 17th, TMT began transporting equipment from the base yard towards the Mauna Kea Access Road, but was stopped due to the closure of the Mauna Kea Access Road by a large crowd of protesters. The access road still remains closed. A remnant of the old Saddle Road, which runs parallel to the Daniel K. Inouye Highway, is currently being used to connect the Mauna Kea Access Road above the current roadblock. This road has deteriorated from disuse, but is the only readily available access to the upper sections of Mauna Kea. The spur road, as we normally call it, is lined with vehicles and tents, people walking about, including children, not making for a safe access for those who work on the mountain. Access for observatory personnel and deliveries of supplies such as water, gas, and fuel requires informing the Office of Mauna Kea Management, who in turn informs DoCare of the names of observatories, number of vehicles, and estimated time of arrival. This information is then transmitted to the kupuna. For deliveries involving large vehicles such as water and fuel tankers, pre-arrangement has to be made to use the main access road, and at the point they reach the kupuna tent, they drive around the kupuna tent and then regain access to the main paved road up to the mountain. MKSS and UH personnel do not require the same procedure of notifying DoCare and the activists, but our personnel have been blocked from going up the mountain to carry on their stewardship functions. Removal of unpermitted structures. On June 20th, the state removed unpermitted structures built in the Mauna Kea Science Reserve, the Mauna Kea Forest Reserve, and the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. The structures that were removed were not permitted as required by Conservation District rules or by nor did they receive approval from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And finally, the ingress-egress parking project near the Visitor Information Station is finally completed. A final inspection was made, and the contractor was issued a letter of substantial completion. The Visitor Information Station, however, still remains closed due to the roadblock. So currently, with the new configuration, there are about 50 parking stalls, a walkway from the parking lot to the Visitor Information Station, and a one-way ingress drop-off lane that runs parallel to the access road. Completion of this project is in compliance and fulfills one of the Comprehensive Management Plan's action of putting parking and vehicle pull-outs on the same side of the road as the Visitor Information Station. And that concludes my report.
During the process of looking at the EA, there was a decision to remove 200 mamani trees, and have the replacement mamani trees been successfully planted, and are they living?
We have planted seedlings for mamani, and actually we had a number of them in the stage of seedling stages, but we had a frost that killed them. So we're starting up we have a new batch of seedlings in progress. The next step for us upon the completion of this ingress-egress project, the parking lot area, is for us to build a greenhouse, a dedicated greenhouse where we can actually do this without having to go and physically water the plants on a every other day basis. So that is moving forward. Now that the Viz information station is ingress-egress project is completed, we're going to move forward towards building this greenhouse to help us with the seedlings.
So the project really isn't completed because that was a critical condition of the...
Yeah, it's that part of the project, the Mamani planting, growing and planting, is part of the project, but it's not going to be, it can't obviously be completed by the end of the paving project.
I do think it doesn't acknowledge the impact of the folks who are blocking the road. And so when I first joined this board, what was communicated to me is that portion, that basically this body has no say or influence over TMT and that project moving forward. So I guess since you did spend a lot of time in the report kind of documenting the efforts that are being made to allow access for astronomy community, the dangers that are present there, I feel like it's warranted for me to ask if we are involved in any way in addressing, communicating, coordinating the actions and activities around those who are choosing to block the roadway.
Our communication is with DoCare because they're the immediate law enforcement closest to the roadblock, and so we work with DoCare in terms of how we need access to the mountain. It's primary. What their main issue is just getting access to the mountain. So they've been very helpful in getting us up to the mountain. They communicate. That's the protocol is that they communicate directly with the kupunas.
So just kind of off of that question as well, is that it's curious to me why the access is necessary and why perhaps there could be a bit more communication between this board and perhaps even just not just through DoCare as like a bottleneck, but building that relationship so that there can be a bit more open communication with you guys as far as your needs and as far as what is necessary. Like it's the whole game of telephone, you see, with like DoCare. But if there could be like maybe a mediation or just like a building of that relationship, would that be interesting to the board?
Are you offering to set that up?
If that is interesting, then yes, I could definitely get the right people for you guys to talk to.
Obviously, we're always interested in communicating, so that's a conversation we can have offline. But we're always interested in communicating. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to our next item of business, and that's our report from Kahuku Mauna. Shane, are you online?
Yep, great, I'm here, thanks.
Okay, can you give us your report?
Kahuku Mauna has been working on continuing consultation for the CSO decommissioning. We're also happy that the ingress-egress has completed. We've been working on that as well for a long time. The last meeting we had, last couple of meetings prior, we had the mayor visit us to talk to us about his visions and creating collaboration between his group and Kahuku Mauna and how all that would work out. Members of Kahuku Mauna continue to work with as part of one of our CRs in the CMP is that we continue to work with Ohanas. I've been up on the Mauna myself on several occasions, just getting a feel and just talking to people. I know that other members have been up there as well, and just kind of getting a feel and a touch of what's happening at Pu'uhuluhulu. I think that one of the things that we will be looking forward to talking in future meetings is how we can continue to control population when the road does open up. There might be an opportunity for us with collaboration with Mauna Kea Management Board to discuss on how we could probably have better control with managing people up in the Mauna once the road is open. Particularly with commercial entities. But yeah, those are possible discussions in the future, and that's kind of where Kahuku Mauna is at right now.
Fritz Klassner, Natural Resource Program Manager. So we anticipate holding the next Environment Committee meeting sometime the first half of September. An attendance poll was sent out to committee members recently for this purpose. The September meeting would tentatively include on the agenda a discussion of invasive species issues. It's always the topic, kind of native plant restoration per Mrs. Ward's comments before, as well as reviews of pending CSO decommissioning technical reports. We don't normally hold a late spring, early summer meeting, as that's when we do our big push of field work, and we've just finished that. On that note, the annual Arthropod, including vacubug invasive species and invasive species monitoring, was completed in June. For reference, if we were to do this with just a single field crew, sort of the two of us on the staff, it'd be over a month of field work. But we get a lot of help from the Natural Area Reserve and the Big Island Invasive Species Committee program staff and Dr. Jesse Iben's lab employees and students. They help review our methods and help us in the field. So we finish it in just a couple of weeks instead. No new threats were identified in 2019, at least with the initial screening of results. And in terms of vacubug population or abundance numbers, it was average to a little bit below average, but not so low to be alarming. The bug numbers vary wildly from year to year. That's normal with that type of species. Also, with Dr. Iben's recent departure for Pennsylvania, we've inherited his arthropod reference collections. These are an invaluable resource, over 80,000 specimens, and we're working with DLNR and the University of Hawaii Manoa Museum to make sure everything gets to the right home. Recently, on June 19th, the Carpenter Ant queen was found in the DOT right-of-way up at Halepohaku. And under the 2015 Mauna Kea Invasive Species Management Plan, all ants are considered a high priority threat. Thus, we started the rapid response procedures. We continued to implement those until mid-July, until access started to be blocked, and then we submitted our final report since we were no longer to do any further response work. In brief, we didn't find any other carpenter ants, even though this was a detection of a queen. The species itself is not believed to be the worst threat as it comes to ant because it tends to eat old wood, and there's not, other than some, the Maumani snags, there's not a lot of wood up at that elevation, and certainly not higher up. We will continue to monitoring when we're allowed access and report consistent with our permits and the invasive species plan. There's a lot of different ways that queen could have got up there, whether it flown, vehicle, transported with biological material, so we don't really know how it got there. And in the process, we did detect another Cardiocondyla species. Cardiocondyla is already up there, but there was a different species in the genus that was detected, so following up on that as well. Native plant restoration associated with the ingress-egress project is, as Debbie alluded to, is going slowly. We had planned on doing additional outplantings in July, but weren't able to access the site, so those haven't been planted. We're working with the rangers to keep the plantings going, keep them alive until we can reliably get up there to plant and water. We have seeds that will start to sow once we can get access as well on a assured basis, routine basis. Our summer intern, Taylor Quinories, she recently wrapped up. She's her work with us, but she's a UH Hilo undergraduate student. She assisted with our field work, but her project this year was to prepare information sheets on select native plants, including Mamane, Hina, and Veo, presenting summaries of cultural knowledge integrated with restoration roles for the same plants. The next step in her project is to take the results to Kahukumana and see what their feedback and guidance is, and we'll go from there. Seabird and bat project is continuing, both as mentioned at the last meeting. Both birds and bats have been detected flying overhead with radar in the forest reserve and over UH managed lands. We have not detected, either using radar or acoustic monitoring, any activity at the summit on the ground, sort of any habitat use on the ground up in the summit vicinity. We did cease operations in the summit region at high elevations, and anything that requires use along the access road just out of access concerns and lack of access. Both Akeake and Ua'u have, however, been detected in the upper reaches of the forest reserve with acoustic monitoring. So there are Akeake and Ua'u on the ground at high elevation in the forest reserve, just how high up they go. Lastly, we participated in Imiloa's week-long summer camps for youth. This year's theme was fantastic bugs and where to find them. At both their June and July camps, we shared information about the vacu bug, led an insect role-playing activity, and showed keiki insects collections from Mauna Kea. And we don't have any volunteer events scheduled at this time.
So it was only one Carpenter Ant queen.
Just one queen, which was curious.
Yeah.
Any number of ways it could have got there. Fallen off a vehicle, flown, been in lower elevation and just come up, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, any questions? Doug?
Jesse took a job. He's left. Past tense. California University of Pennsylvania. Did I say that right? Something like that. California, Pennsylvania. The town of California in Pennsylvania. I struggle with it every time I have to think about it. The geography.
Yeah. So he's gone already?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. Thank you, Fritz.